Well, my dear brothers and sisters, one of the critiques leveled against the Christian faith around the time of Rome, in those final few centuries of Rome, one of the critiques leveled against the Christian faith was that it makes people weak. It makes people wimps. You know, some of the virtues of the Roman Empire, to establish empire, to go out to conquer countries, to destroy foes, to create laws, to subjugate and to liberate people by the use of right reason and grand displays, to construct magnificent temples and beautiful buildings, some of which remain even today. And the critique was that the Christian faith lowers our horizons. Now, of course, it opens up our eyes to heaven, to the afterlife, but perhaps even that's a problem. Maybe that's a problem. You get people so convinced about the afterlife being the most important thing that the current struggles of the day and beautifying the city and expanding the empire becomes very, very unimportant, if not downright distracting. In fact, a commentator by the name of Gibbon, much later after the fall of Rome, reflected upon this very fact, that the reason why Rome fell was because of moral denigration. But he didn't mean the moral denigration that we oftentimes think of, and that I would say does indeed lead to the disintegration of a country. What he meant was that Christian virtues like humility, Christian virtues like willingness to suffer for others, Christian virtues such as silence at times, embracing silence, this was a problem. And it made the human experience much, much, much smaller. Now, my brothers and sisters, in today's Holy Gospel, Jesus challenges the apostles not because they want to be great. He doesn't chastise them because they want to be great. He chastises them because their measure of greatness is each other, one another. And when you base your own sense of importance and dignity upon comparison with others, you are setting yourself up for grave problems, both on the spiritual level and in terms of mental health, constantly comparing oneself to others. This is not the way to build up the foundation of a heroic, noble life. So what is the basis of a heroic, noble life? Certainly it is service, to serve our neighbor, to love our neighbor as ourselves. But even deeper than that, it is the gift of the Holy Spirit himself, who sets our heart on fire with great love for God and a desire to do great things for him, to manifest the greatness of God in the greatness of our actions. The ancient world saw as one of the most important virtues magnanimity of soul. The great-souled man who was able to do great things. Now, oftentimes, this greatness was attached to wealth. The power to do great things was attached to the power to create monuments, to effect massive change, the use of resources. And so there was this understanding that to be a truly magnanimous man requires certain resources available to you. Certainly, I'd say one of the revolutionary characters of the Christian faith is that it opens up heroism to all, including the child and the mentally retarded. They are able to be heroic in a way that the ancient world would have scoffed at. That's absurd, not for the Christian. But again, this greatness comes from not comparing ourselves to others, but by the promptings of the Holy Spirit, who desires us to be great. You know, by means of the baptismal font, we are by grace what Christ is by nature. Think about that. By means of the gifts of the sacraments, we are able to be the heroes that the Lord is. And by means of our sufferings, our struggles, our joys, our actions, great and small, we participate in the salvation of the world. That's a pretty important monument, the sanctification of the world. But we have to want to be great, and we have to want to conform our life to his life, the great hero who dies, the great hero who bleeds to death. In today's gospel, Jesus speaks about the need to be childlike and to receive a child. What does it mean to be childlike in terms of the vision of greatness to which we are called, to be real heroes and noble men and women? We are called to be dependent upon God. Our capacity for greatness, for sanctity, for heroicism is not on our own efforts. It's based upon the Lord's grace. And this must always animate us and drive us so that we are not overcome by our failures and so that we always have the courage to begin again. As we grow in our faith and as we simply grow up, sometimes we can abandon the dreams of our young, zealous selves. We had all kinds of dreams about who we would be and what we would be, especially on the inside. And maybe over time we begin to accept mediocrity and compromise. Because we have relied upon ourselves, we have not recognized that the real root of greatness is God's work, who desires us to be great and to be heroic. My friends, one of the observations made by many people much smarter than me is that there's a dearth of dudes who take the faith seriously. Now, brothers, you are here. I love you. Thank you. But the fact is that many times, as one grows older and leaves the house where maybe you had to attend Mass and embrace the Christian way of life, there's an abandonment of the faith. And there's all kinds of reasons for that. But one reason I'd offer that's particularly poignant for dudes, I think, is that the Christian faith is very rarely ever more presented as challenging. It's presented simply as suburban values. Be nice, be kind, work hard. There's a lot more to it than that. And so because there doesn't oftentimes seem to be a real foe to fight, there doesn't seem to be a real enemy to do battle with, a project to commit ourselves to, a structure to build. Because of this, there's a kind of a languishing, and men seek that elsewhere or embrace mediocrity, sitting in front of a tube all day. We're called to remember the real heights of sanctity to which we are called and the demands of the Christian way of life. That we too, like the ancients, are called to greatness of soul, to set our sights upon great things, heroic things. We are called to be heroes and to be saints. And this flows from, again, a dependency upon God, the power of the sacraments, and gratitude. My dear friends, when we are grateful to someone for their presence, for something that they have done, we want to show that gratitude in action or in things. You know, a couple, when you're celebrating a major anniversary, there should be some kind of commemorative gift there, or action or trip. When you're grateful to a friend, some sign of gratitude is appropriate and good, a sign, a visible sign. This is natural, and so too it is with God. Maybe the reason why we don't long for greatness anymore is because we're not grateful to God anymore. Again, we think of it as primarily our project, not realizing that every good thing in our life, every good thing is a gift from God that demands gratitude, and a sign of that gratitude in the shrines we build of our lives of love and goodness and beauty and joy. So, what dragons can you conquer? What enemy can you do battle with as you strive to be the hero that you are called to be, the great man, the great woman? The Christian faith is not a faith of mediocrity. It's a faith of greatness. I'd like to offer 3 particular fields of battle for you all to consider. Number 1, the field of battle in your own heart. Within all of us, there is a desert, there's a jungle, there's a wilderness that must be conquered. And for many of us, we've allowed that jungle, that desert to spread. We simply haven't put any checks on it at all. Maybe other people don't know about it, but we know we've got it within. Maybe a struggle with impurity, a struggle with control of our tongue, Maybe it's a struggle with apathy and laziness. Whatever it is, we have to resolve to do combat with that particular enemy. There's a great spiritual work called Spiritual Combat by Lorenzo Scapoli. And Scapoli offers a very wise tactic in this art of Christian war. Focus on one enemy. You can't fight a multifaceted war. You don't have the troops for it. You don't have the resources for it. So focus on one particular enemy. Now, that's not to say we let everything else go hog wild, but focus on one particular fault. Maybe, again, it is struggles with impurity. If our struggles with pornography, I resolve that I will only look at the internet at certain times of the day, or put my computer in a public space in the home. Maybe my struggle is with my tongue, with gossip or with sarcasm. I resolve that every day I will say something uplifting and encouraging to another. Maybe my struggle is with laziness. I'll resolve to wake up right away when that alarm hits. I will not hit the snooze button. I will begin right away, the first battle of the day, the snooze button. Number two, the second area of battle, to be great, to live a radical life. The world, I don't know if you've noticed, but is going through a lot of challenges, a lot of difficulties. And one of the reasons for that is because we as Christians are not saints. We've said this many times before, and I believe it firmly. We look for all kinds of blame, politicians, lawyers, laws. But ultimately, the world is in a mess because we are not striving to be holy, to be different, to live a radical life. We've tried compromise. We've tried dialogue, and it doesn't seem to have worked. So perhaps we better strive holiness and living our life differently than the world. What might that look like in your own life? Well, maybe, just maybe, you resolve to embrace meatless Fridays. Small battle, but a cultural sign to others. I am living my life different. Maybe we resolve that only on certain days of the week we'll watch television. I know it's getting kind of crazy in here, I know. Maybe some days of the week, and some days you fast from the television and just spend time together or run around outside. How are we spending our leisure time, our vacation time? Is our life different than the rest of the world? And then finally, third, another area of battle to do something great for God is indeed to do something extraordinary. One area that we can do that in, many of us, not all, is indeed through our pocketbook. Now, you will not be saved based upon how much money you give. Let's be clear. In fact, one could give a great deal, but if one's heart is not given to God, it doesn't matter much. In fact, it might even be offensive to the Lord. Meanwhile, the widow who gives from her emptiness, from her poverty, she is given a great reward. The magnanimous man in the ancient world did great things with his resources. What about us? Many of us have been blessed, not all, with real financial security and financial flexibility. My brothers and sisters, part of gratitude is doing something for God with that money. And one practical suggestion I might offer is to begin to discern, what can I give for the debt reduction campaign of Transfiguration? We're going to be beginning that campaign shortly, and all of you will receive a request to give something. And I urge you to consider the magnanimous man, to do something great, to help with a project that you had no part to play in developing, the debt that is, for example. But the Lord calls you in a spirit of sonship or daughtership to contribute and to give generously, sacrificially, at cost to oneself. Perhaps you might consider bonding together or banding together with fellow parishioners or colleagues at work. Start a Bible study. Sometimes we're approached in the parish office. Father, can we do this? Can we do that? And certainly, sometimes you got to coordinate. You have to coordinate with what's going on in the parish. But sometimes you just got to take the reins and go for it. Initiative. We're looking for Christians with initiative, with an entrepreneurial spirit. There's no reason why one has to wait for the parish staff to say, it's okay to say the rosary after Mass together. You don't got to wait for that. There's no reason why the parish staff has to tell you, I can have a Bible study in my home. No reason why you got to wait for us for that. There's no reason why there needs to be any waiting for the parish staff to serve at a soup kitchen or to serve the poor. No reason at all. I urge you to take the initiative and to consider, what can I do for the Lord? What can I give to the Lord? My friends, the desire for greatness, what's the word I'm looking for? Suddenly it just slipped out of my shouting lips. The desire to be great. Christian ambition, that's it. Christian ambition is a real thing. Not the ambition of the world, not the ambition of comparing ourselves to each other, but the ambition of, I want to do something great for God. And that greatness may be the conquering of oneself so that we can give ourselves to others. That greatness may be the radicalness of our life that is weird and strange in the eyes of the world. That radicalness may be something that is quite extraordinary and that is generous and breathtaking, given with love. I want to be holy. I want to be great. I recognize that I only have one life to live. I don't always correspond my actions with the desires of my heart, but they are there. And I beg the Holy Spirit to inflame in us all a desire to be great, to be truly men and women of large souls, not limiting our horizons, but living the faith, the only faith that can save the world and build monuments that will last forever.